The mysterious magical nursery garden. It has been several days since I have been able to be with Larry. I still have very fond memories of the pool party and want to be with him very badly. I can't help it, he is my first love and I am totally enraptured by this most beautiful man. Having Lisa as a playmate is great, but I miss Larry and I really feel a serious emptiness in my heart. I do see Larry from time to time off and about his duties as my personal bodyguard and as the Crown Prince of Moon Spring. This still hasn't afforded me any private time with Larry and I am really getting to be lonely for his touch. I have on just a diaper and a satin diaper cover that has ruffles around the leg openings, waistband, and 4 across my bottom. I have on no top and some very soft matching booties and matching ribbons make my ponytails. Nana has made sure that both me and Lisa are dressed as adorable as she can get us. I am starting to feel ache in my soul I cannot define and need to be alone again. I take my white crocheted spread from the bed. I wrap myself loosely in it and open the nursery door when Nana isn't looking and is busy changing Lisa's stinky diaper. I know baby shouldn't go anywhere without someone to watch over her, and I know I'm going to get spanked like last time, but I needed to be alone so I could daydream about Larry. I quietly close the nursery door and walk down the hall towards the mysterious magical garden of the moon. Many people from multitudes of worlds fill the halls and all greet me and bow or curtsy as I pass. I wander into the garden of the moon and sit in one of the gazebos. I sit and look out over the pond and watch the fishes swim and play below me. I can see my reflection in the water. I feel so lonely I start to daydream about Larry. I miss him so terribly. I don't know how long I sat and dreamed of Larry. Babies are terrible at keeping track of time. All I know is it seemed like only an instant to me as I feel the soft warmth of the day and become absorbed in my sweet thoughts of Larry. I hear someone behind me. I feel a neuralizing halo being placed on my head. I hear the Guardian interface activate. Protection protocol active. My force field turns on. No. Administrative access is active within the halo. I gasp in shock. I await the click and the sudden download of a program. Nothing happens except I faintly sense the illegal protocol rejection and hear the halo self-destruct. I turn and see 4 very gruff and dirty-looking men behind me. I think to myself, no. I made no wish. What is this? This is not fantasy, these idiots are trying to kidnap me for real. I remove the inert halo and throw it at the first man. My aim is deadly and it strikes him square in the middle of his forehead. There is blood, he falls and stays down for a minute. The others are very angry with the baby and intend to do me great bodily harm. They obviously are confused about the halo and why it didn't work. They also are very surprised I am not as much baby as they thought I was supposed to be. They draw very nasty-looking weapons and point them at me. I am suddenly 3 going on 18 and am not afraid in the least. I ask them softly in a little girl's voice, "Are you sure this is what you want?" I hear much profanity. I hear them calling me many names. I hear how much damage they intend to do to my body over the course of the next few days. I hear things I do not quite understand. I am not impressed and it shows. This makes them even worse. One of the men fires his weapon at me. It glances off of the force field and hits just to the left of my face and destroys part of the gazebo. Debris scatters all around me. Nothing gets on me or even comes near me. I don't flinch or even seem to respond to the flash except to blink. I respond in a soft little girl voice. My judgment for you is to be gender-assigned female and placed in the breeding farm for the race of lizard cats. They will enjoy you immensely. They fire their weapons at me, full force. The beams hit me square in the chest. I giggle. I do not flinch. I look down at the place where all that energy had just been completely absorbed. Not a mark on me. The force field is a formidable thing. What I do next is most impressive too. I raise my hand. I hold up 3 fingers and point them to a wall next to the man I had hit with the halo. With a flip of my wrist, the wall shatters. The building explodes violently. The debris hits them all in the head with just enough force to knock them down but not seriously injure them. The rest of the debris scatters across the park. I turn my wrist over, palm up, with my 2 middle fingers curled in. Their weapons are now suspended in the air. I close my hand with my index finger pointing at the suspended weapons. I point my finger out to the pond. The weapons suddenly are cast to the middle of the pond and disappear below the surface. This all transpired in the blink of an eye. There is major surprise, fear, and confusion on their faces. One of the men says in fear, "Donnie, did you see what that bitch just done? That's some pin outer a siffy vid or some pin." I smile thinly and raise both hands and turn them open, palm down. Suddenly, there is a deep rumble and the sky grows very dark. Lightning flashes horribly across the sky. They look up. It has suddenly become dark as night. All the lights in the park come on. A definite temperature drop. The crash of thunder shakes the ground beneath them as severe lightning again explodes across the sky. They cover their heads with their arms as they stare skyward in mortal fear. I say in a booming little girl voice, "Oh arrogant men. Do you not know who I am? Or do you know but are too stupid to care?" I point to another gazebo in the distance. A massive bolt of lightning flashes from the sky and strikes it. There is an immediate explosion of fire and sparks as the gazebo vanishes to be replaced by a smoldering hole in the ground. The ground shakes with the force of it and debris starts to fall all around. A very intensely strong odor of ozone is everywhere. The men whimper in mortal fear at this. Massive thunder rolls across the sky. I point my finger to a tree behind the men. A huge lightning bolt strikes the tree. The tree explodes into a huge ball of fire and debris, leaving behind another smoking crater. Crashing thunder, the men fall prone at my feet and beg pitifully for mercy. I look at the men on the ground at my feet. I am still unimpressed by them, and it really shows now. I hear the door from the palace slam open. Many voices, all highly agitated. Many running feet approach. I wave my hand and the cloud disperses. Light returns and the park lights go out. The air begins to warm again. The sun is shining brightly. He men at my feet are deathly afraid. One of them has made a stinky in his pants. They whimper for mercy. I see Larry running full tilt ahead of the other guards. All have very formidable weapons drawn and are very willing to use them. I shake my head. The only way I get to see Larry is here in the Garden of the Moon. I am a little apprehensive. Baby has been naughty and caused a great deal of damage. They see me in the damaged gazebo. An adorable baby girl dressed in a diaper and rumba panties wrapped in a beautiful crocheted bedspread. They see where weapons fire destroyed part of the gazebo by my head. They see the destroyed building and the massive debris field from it. They see the smoldering hole where the other gazebo used to be. They see massive amounts of debris scattered all around and some still slowly falling from the sky. They see the 4 men on the ground at my feet, all trembling with great fear and begging for mercy. They look again. They see a very cute baby girl in her rumba panties and diaper loosely draped in a white crocheted bedspread from the nursery, sucking her thumb amid major destruction that was obviously, mostly caused by her. There were 4 of the gruffest, nastiest looking men groveling at her feet for mercy. They stop running and stare in awe. Larry approaches and asks, "Mickey? Is baby hurt in any way?" He hugs and kisses me passionately. I return the passion to the best of my ability. I look at him sweetly and giggle softly. I reply, "No, baby not hurt, sweetie." I point to the men on the ground. They might be though. They've been through a lot recently. Larry looks around at the massive devastation. The strong odor of ozone mixed with burning wood lingers in the air. Smoke drifts lazily across the park on the gentle breeze. He is truly impressed. He looks at me and asks, "What happened, Mickey?" I answer. They tried to use a stolen neuro halo on me. I'm not sure what they want or why. I cannot be stolen or reprogrammed without Master Controller's approval. There is no way for anyone to get that kind of approval. Their reprogramming was denied and the halo self-destructed. They were really rude to baby. She had to teach them some manners. They are to be gender reassigned females and to be sent to the lizard cat breeding facility immediately. After neutralization, they will tell us everything we want to know. This is my judgment for them. One of the men on the ground whimpers. What does that mean? How can we be female and breed? Larry shakes his head and replies. You are idiots. Don't you know this is the empress of the known universe as explored by man? You are to be genetically altered, as only the genetic research facility knows how, and will be female. There is a race of people that are a genetic construct. They cannot breed with themselves but require a Terrian male or female to accomplish this. You four will be among those females. One of the men overcame his fear and stood suddenly and was about to run. Larry was about to draw his weapon. I pointed my finger at the man. A huge crack echoed across the park. The man was on his back in serious pain after being knocked backward for several dozen feet. The others just whimpered more. Larry turned, a look I could not decipher was on his face. He asked, "My lady?" I looked at Larry and said, "I'm sorry." It was reflex. I would like to spend some time with you if I could. I miss you terribly. Larry shook his head and replied. As you wish, baby. He tells the rest of the guard to pick the four men up and to take them to the genetics lab for reassignment. Larry looks at me and says very sternly, "Mickey, you have been a very bad baby wandering off that way again. You have scared Nana to death. Lisa and your mother are hysterical, not to mention what you have done to all the Imperial Guards. The entire palace is a total uproar. And the damage." He waves his hand around. There was massive damage and debris. I hear a small voice in my head. It tells me I deserve a paddling for this. If Larry decides to do it, I will be helpless to stop him. I look at Larry with the look of a little girl caught doing a no. He is looking at me very sternly. Larry walks to a bench and sits down and calls me over to him. He says, "Baby, I'm going to spank you for this." The guards all hold the men and stand with their back to me and Larry. I cannot resist. I walk to Larry. Larry picks me up and places me across his knees. I am totally helpless to stop what comes. There is even total silence from Battle Command. My weapons interface is inactive. I can't help it, I start squirming and wiggling and begging him not to spank baby. I cry and say how sorry I am. He pulls down my panties and diaper just enough for the cheeks of my bottom to show. I suddenly feel his hand firmly smack me on my bottom. I cannot help myself. I cry. I am truly devastated that I am being punished. I get another firm smack on my soft bottom. I am a baby girl who just got paddled for doing a big no. He stands me on my feet and pulls up my diaper and my panties. He says very firmly, "Baby will not wander off this way again, or use her toys to break things, will she?" My bottom hurts where he had spanked me. I am crying pitifully and cannot help it. I am so sorry baby wandered off and made this huge mess. I shake my head no that I won't wander off alone again and start to suck my blasted thumb. Larry picks me up and hugs me gently. Larry comforts baby and tells her he loves her. I take my thumb from my mouth and kiss him sweetly. He says softly, "Baby scared us terribly. I'm sorry I had to spank. You deserved it. Don't ever wander off like that again." I put my thumb in my mouth and sniffle. I love Larry and won't disappoint him again if I can help it. I know I will get spanked more. Little babies do wrong and must be corrected from time to time. I sniffle some more as Larry carries me to the genetics lab to watch the reassignment of the 4 would-be kidnappers. Larry calls on the comm that he has found me and will make a full report when he gets to the office. He tells them where we are going and why and that I am perfectly safe. I notice he is on a different uniform today. The rank insignia have all changed too. I think this is sort of strange. Babies don't worry about such things. I see workers arrive and start to clean up my mess and begin repairs. They swarm all over like ants after having their nest disturbed. We turn a corner and I cannot see them any longer. I worry as I suck my thumb. If Larry is this upset with me, I am afraid of what awaits me when I get back to the nursery and Nana and Mommy. I shiver with fear of their anger at what baby has done. The edge of nowhere. Edison said nothing for the first 3 hours. Despite his mother's best assurances otherwise, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being punished. And a cruel and unusual punishment at that. It hadn't been his fault. None of it had. He hadn't asked to be bullied or ostracized. As far as he could tell, it wasn't even personal, they had just needed someone to fill that role and he had been conveniently available. He hadn't asked for the anxiety, the panic attacks, or the insomnia either. Like the bullying, it just seemed to appear out of nowhere one day, then get worse the more he tried to fight it. Sleepless nights led to drowsy afternoons, further eroding Edison's already damaged grades. It had not been a good year, but against all odds he had survived. It was over. The earthly hell that was 5th grade was finally behind him. Summer had arrived at last. Edison had had so many plans for this summer. Minecraft. Lots of Minecraft. And Nintendo. Loads of Nintendo. He didn't own a Switch yet, but he'd saved up most of what he needed, and knew he could use Mom's guilt and sympathy to get the rest. In the meantime, he had hundreds of hours of TV ready to go on the DVR, including an entire season of Game of Thrones. Edison wasn't a huge fan of GOT, it seemed to alternate between completely terrifying and painfully boring, but he didn't wish to be the only kid in 6th grade not up to date. So many plans. So much potential. And now, as he watched the miles pass by one after the other, Edison could feel those dreams withering and dying one by one. It was the worst summer he could possibly imagine. Mom had actually tried to get him excited. It hadn't worked. "You love Grandma Bird," she said. "You'll have a great time." "She's weird," Edison said. "She's just a bit eccentric," Mom said. "I think it's great." "Then you spend the month with her." Edison said. "I'll see you in July." "Very funny," Mom said. "I'd come with you if I didn't have to work, but you wouldn't want me there anyway. It'll be so much fun just the two of you." "All alone in the middle of nowhere with a kooky old woman," Edison said. "Yeah, that's exactly my idea of fun." "I don't know what happened," Mom said. "You used to love going to cabin with her." "I was a little kid, then," Edison said. "Grandma had a room full of toys up there. Things are different now. I'm older. It takes more than a box of Hot Wheels to keep me entertained." Grandma spoke, breaking the wall of silence and ending Edison's mental exile. "I know you don't want to be here," she said. "Don't think you have to pretend otherwise for my sake." "My mom says I don't have to stay the whole month," Edison said. "She says if I'm still miserable after a week, she'll come get me." "Challenge accepted," Grandma said. "Why don't we start with something to eat?" "I don't know about you, but I'm getting hungry." "I'm hungry too," Edison said. A minute or two later, Grandma Bird pulled off the highway into a small rest stop. it wasn't much to look at. 3 parking spaces, 2 picnic tables, and a tiny restroom. At least it was a chance to stretch his legs. At the table, Grandma Bird presented a cooler filled with sandwiches. I wasn't sure what kind you'd want, so I made a few options. Navy blue is chicken salad, cyan is tuna salad, azure is raspberry jelly, baby blue is grape jelly, teal is ham, cornflower is turkey, periwinkle is cucumber, and zaffer is falafel. Edison went for the turkey but ended up with grape jelly instead. Close enough. What are you having, Grandma? Peanut butter and salmon, Grandma said. I didn't even think to make you one. Would you like it? I can eat the cucumber. No, thanks, Edison said. I'll stick with the peanut butter. Your sounds, disgusting. Grandma said. It's okay. Most people find it a somewhat off-putting combination. I, on the other hand, think it's great. Edison's was suddenly grateful for his peanut butter sandwich, which was surprisingly delicious. The next 2 hours passed quicker, mostly being filled with Grandma Bird's repeated attempts at making a connection with the younger generation. So what's your favorite thing to do when you get home from school, she said. Minecraft, Edison said. I've heard of that, Grandma said. Those are like building blocks, right? You always did love those. I'm too old for building blocks, Edison said. It's a video game. I like video games too, Grandma said. Do people still play Pac-Man? No, Edison said. Grandma Bird hadn't heard any of Edison's favorite music. He offered to play her some samples, before remembering that Mom had forbidden him from bringing any electronics along. That's okay, Grandma Bird said. We'll find lots of other fun things to do together once we get to the homestead. Speaking of, look at that, we're here. Here, as it turned out, meant not so much to the house as to the property line. They had to drive another 15 minutes along a slow, bumpy dirt road to get to the actual structure. Well, Grandma said, here was our old new home. Is it everything you remembered? Edison's memories of the summer house were all from the perspective of the little kid he had once been. Mom was right, back then, he had loved coming up here to spend a week or 2 with his grandmother. He remembered getting just as excited as she did when they passed the last bend in the road, and of racing out of the car and up the steps as fast as he could. Everything seemed so magical and perfect back then. Through older, wiser eyes, Edison could see that the place was, in really, kind of a dump. The house itself was an unremarkable 2-story, smaller than most of the ones in his neighborhood back home, with a cracked foundation, faded paint, and a sagging roof. Far from the utopian wonderland he had foolishly thought it was. Well, Grandma said. Hasn't changed a bit, Edison said. Grandma laughed. It's not exactly the same, of course. I had to replace Helga, the refrigerator, last year. Frank, the old sofa, finally sat his last, and of course your room is different. But other than that, things are pretty much as they've always been. Come on, let's go inside. Edison felt the same way inside that he had outside. Everything was the same, and yet somehow different. He remembered the big pantry, where he had spent cumulative hours staring up and imagining all the delicious meals Grandma would soon cook him. It was all still there, but now it was just ugly shelves of uninspiring boxes and ingredients. The difference was even more apparent upstairs. Grandma Bird's room hadn't changed a bit, but being invited in to sit on her bed no longer felt like a special treat or grown-up privilege. It was your typical old lady room, complete with the requisite out-of-date flower patterns and lingering perfume smell. The 2 spare rooms, which Edison used to call the hide-and-seek rooms, were now locked, used as storage for what his grandmother described as miscellaneous things she couldn't bring herself to throw away. Edison's room had once been his favorite place in all the world, deep blue walls that always made him smile, toy boxes filled with all the funnest things, and right in the middle the most exciting race car bed he had ever seen. It was an almost mythical place then. His new room was fine, but nothing to write home about. The bright blue walls had been repainted a respectable tan, the magical toy boxes replaced by a pair of plain IKEA bookshelves, and the custom race car bed swapped out for a comfortable but plain metal frame. "Thanks, Grandma," Edison said, trying his best to sound excited. It wasn't that he would have wanted a little kid room still, he was, after all, grown up now, but he did miss the wonder and excitement that the new furniture could never recapture. "You're welcome," Grandma said. "I wasn't really sure how to decorate it. I thought maybe you and I could finish it up while you're here." "Okay," Edison said. Edison his clothes bag on the bed. He hadn't packed much. 3 shirts, 2 pairs of pants, and his pajamas, plus socks and underwear. Just enough to get him through the week. The second bag was lighter, and had been packed by Edison's mom. He didn't have to open it to know what was inside. Half a pack of nighttime pants, as she insisted on calling them, and, if that wasn't humiliating enough, baby wipes. The bedwetting was something else that had only started recently, another unwelcome intrusion into Edison's previously stress-free life. The pull-ups helped. It was better than waking up in soaked pajamas twice a week, but he hated the fact that he needed them. Edison kicked the bag under the bed and tried his best to forget about it. Unloading and unpacking the truck took most of the rest of the day. Grandma Bird seemed to have packed the entire contents of her apartment, then half the local hardware store on top of that. Enough food to feed a small army, building materials sufficient to make a whole new house, stacks of books to add to an already exhaustive library, and a box of what Edison was sure were Christmas decorations. They stopped in time for a late dinner, which consisted of the sandwiches from lunch. Edison tried to find the turkey again, but picked azure instead of cornflour and ended up with strawberry jelly. Whatever, he thought. After dinner, they headed up for the night. Edison changed into his pajamas and tried not to think about the duffel bag under the bed. Embarrassing as it was, wearing pull-ups at night had become routine at home. Doing it here felt different. Worse. Even as a little kid in the childish race car bed, Edison had never had trouble staying dry at night. He cringed at the realization that had changed. Putting the thought behind him, Edison pulled back the covers and climbed into bed. He'd be fine. He'd just been to the bathroom, and hadn't had much to drink in the first place. Besides, he probably wouldn't sleep very soundly in this crazy place anyway. Tuesday. Edison was cautiously optimistic. 1 down, 4 to go. 4 more days and he could ask Mom to take him back home. 4 more days and he'd be free. He found Grandma Bird on the front porch, gazing off into the distance. "Isn't it great?" she said. "Nothing but open forest as far as the eye can see." Edison did not think being an hour from the nearest other human was in any way a good thing, but he felt like he probably shouldn't say that to his host. He needed to behave. To thoroughly behave, as his mother had said. "If you thoroughly behave for 1 week, and you're still not having any fun, I will come pick you up and you can have the summer you wanted sitting here staring at a screen all day." Edison didn't know exactly what Mom had meant by that, but he wasn't about to take chances. If he wanted to get out of this, he had to convince her that he'd given it a good try, and that meant having a good attitude. Which is what he was determined to do. Be positive and agreeable. He'd say nice things, and go along with his grandmother's insanity. And then at the end of the week, when they went into town to get supplies, Grandma would have nothing but good things to say about him, and he could confide in his mother privately that it wasn't working out and that he'd rather come home. All that would start right now, with saying something nice about the freaky isolation that Grandma Bird loved so much. Edison thought about it, but had difficult time thinking of anything nice to say. "Well, it certainly is, the middle of nowhere," he finally said. "Hey," Grandma said. "My summer house is not, I repeat not, the middle of nowhere. The middle of nowhere is 7 miles up the trail that way. This is merely the edge of nowhere. Very funny, Edison said. Grandma, can I ask you a question? As long as it's not about the war, Grandma said. Some of that is still classified. Edison took an uncomfortably long time trying to remember if his grandmother had ever been in any sort of war, or if she just joking around. He gave up, still unsure. Not about the war, he said. About this place. Go ahead, she said. Why do you like living way out here, anyway, so far away from other people? Because other people suck, Grandma Bird said. Present company excluded, of course. There are exceptions, but by and large most people seem pretty convinced that they know how you should live your life better than you do. I get tired of it after a while. Sometimes it's nice to come out here where you can do whatever you want and there's no one around to say a damn thing about it. I guess that makes sense, Edison said. He still thought she was crazy, but then again maybe he sort of understood. There was something kind of nice about the idea. Grandma Bird started talking about all the fun activities they could do together, and kept on talking right through breakfast and beyond. Edison had a hard time coming up with appropriate amounts of fake enthusiasm. What do you think? She said. You excited for fly fishing? Of course, Edison said. I'm very excited. He wasn't. But first, Grandma said, as soon as we get settled, I'll take you on a big hike. Show you around the neighborhood. Does that sound fun? That sounds great, he said. It sounded terrible. I love hiking. He hated hiking. Great, Grandma Bird said. But all that later. What about right now? What, in all the world, do you most want to do right now? The names of various video games floated through Edison's head, but he knew better than to say any of them out loud. I honestly don't know, he said. Any suggestions? Why don't we take the truck up to the north property line and make sure everything's A-OK up there, Grandma Bird said. Sure, Edison said. That sounds fun. It sounded like the most boring thing he could possibly imagine. So what are we looking for, exactly? Edison said about halfway up. Washouts, rock slides, trees that fall onto the road, that sort of thing, Grandma Bird said. Things that make the road impassable. Edison said. Mostly, yeah, Grandma said. Where does the road go? Edison said. Nowhere in particular. It ends at the property line. So what do you use it for, then? I use it mostly just to make sure everything's okay up this direction. Oh, Edison said. That makes sense. It made absolutely no sense whatsoever. They reached the end sometime later, then immediately turned around and headed back for the house. There was nothing wrong with the road in either direction. Well, Grandma Bird said, I guess this wasn't as fun for you as I'd hoped it would be. It was fine, Edison said. Say, Grandma Bird said. We're almost back. Would you like to drive the rest of the way? Edison laughed. I'm 11, he said. I won't be able to drive for 5 more years. You forget, Grandma Bird said. This is my truck on my road on my land. That means I decide who can and can't drive. What do you say? Edison agreed to give it a try. He moved to the driver's seat and listened to his grandmother explain the controls. Okay, she said. Why don't you give it a go? This was going to be awesome. Nobody else in 6th grade would know how to drive. If he got in enough practice, maybe Mom would let him drive her car in a parking lot or down by the fairgrounds. Most kids his age would kill for this opportunity. Then why was he so nervous? Why were his palms sweaty and his hands shaking and his heart pounding? He just had to push the brake, hold the wheel, turn the key. They were all alone in the middle of a big open field. There was no reason for this to be frightening. So why couldn't he get his hands and feet to cooperate? Grandma Bird could tell that something was wrong. Are you okay? She said. I'm not, Edison said. I'm not old enough. I can't do it. I'm sorry. I'm too dash. There's nothing wrong with being scared, Grandma Bird said. Don't feel bad. But Edison did feel bad. What a stupid thing to be scared of. He couldn't believe he'd screwed things up so badly. The first good thing to happen since Mom insisted that he go on this stupid trip, and he'd ruined it by being afraid. Edison spent the rest of the journey sobbing quietly in the passenger seat. Grandma Bird, mercifully, said very little. He had cheered up, mostly, by late afternoon when Grandma came in to ask about dinner. You've had a rough day, she said. Why don't you pick? What, in all the world, would you most like to eat? We can have anything you want. Edison thought of his favorite foods, none of which they could possibly get for dinner. The double-double with fries from In-N-Out. The Maui Zowie from Round Table. The blueberry pancakes from Mike's Diner. He was surprisingly in the mood for all of them, which was actually unusual. It seemed like months since he had really been hungry for anything. As Edison considered this, another thought formed in the back of his mind, then slowly but firmly pushed and shoved its way forward. He remembered something his grandmother had frequently made when he was little. Macaroni and cheese, with chocolate chip cookies for dessert. It had been his favorite meal. Perhaps, he thought, he might enjoy it still. And yet, it was little kid food, not something any self-respecting almost 12-year-old would ask for. I don't know, he said. I guess I'm not in the mood for anything in particular. How about spaghetti? By the time he went to bed, Edison had all but forgotten about the incident in the truck. He didn't give much thought to the pull-ups under his bed, either, at least not at first. He later remembered about them suddenly in the middle of the night, when he woke up feeling very, very wet. Wednesday. Edison woke confused and disoriented, unsure exactly where he was or why. Slowly, he began to remember bits and pieces of the night before. Dark. Wet pajamas. Wee blankets. Fear. Shame. Tears. Grandma turning on the light. It's okay. Not a big deal. Grandma helping him change into dry clothes. We'll wash these in the morning. For now, you can sleep somewhere else, okay? Edison remembered following his grandmother into the dark hallway. She unlocked one of the storage rooms. There was, she said, an extra bed there. Grandma led him over and helped him climb inside. It was soft. Comfortable. Familiar and strange at the same time. The sun was up outside, but through closed curtains the room was still mostly dark. The blue was the first thing Edison noticed. Bright blue walls. He remembered those walls. This was his old room. His grandmother hadn't repainted it, she'd just switched, putting his new furniture in one of the spare rooms and her storage stuff in here. Except something wasn't quite right, and he couldn't quite figure out what it was. Edison looked down and caught sight of something else he recognized. A steering wheel. More specifically, the steering wheel footboard from his old bed, the one he had loved so much when he was little. It took him a minute to realize it was still attached, that he was sleeping in that bed now. It was all there, even the racetrack sheets and pillowcase. It was lighter now, and Edison began to look around the rest of the room. The dresser was right where he expected, the toy box and shelves exactly where he had left them many summers before. Even the toys were still there, stacked neatly in their proper places. Notably, there were no additions either. Suddenly he understood. This room hadn't been used to store things Grandma didn't want to get rid of, the room was the thing she didn't want to get rid of. It was untouched, as if no one had been in here in years. Except everything was clean and dusted, so clearly she'd been keeping it maintained. But why? Edison got up and made the bed, then went back to his new room and started gathering up the wet sheets and blankets. He had hoped to wash them by himself, but couldn't figure out how to work his grandmother's ancient washing machine. Asking Grandma Bird about the laundry led right into the uncomfortable conversation Edison had been dreading all morning. The explanation. The bedwetting talk. Edison explained how it had started, how Mom thought it was related to his troubles at school, and how he was supposed to, but didn't, wear protection at night. Grandma Bird wasn't mean, upset, or patronizing. In fact, she was as nice and respectful as possible given the circumstances. Which, somehow, made an already terrible situation even worse. Because Edison realized just how much his grandmother had gone out of her way to treat him like a real teenager, the new furniture, grown-up activities, even offering to let him drive a truck, and just how badly, from the steering wheel panic attack to the nighttime accident, he had failed at living up to that. No wonder she'd put him back in the little kid room. After breakfast, Edison went upstairs to spend some time by himself. He brought a few books from the library with him, mostly for appearance's sake. If Grandma Bird thought he was reading, she'd be more likely to leave him alone. Edison started out on the floor in his bedroom, but found that being back at the scene of the crime only made him more depressed. Moving to the blue room, his old room, helped. He had made a lot of old, good memories here, and, perhaps more importantly, no new, bad ones. With nothing else to do, Edison picked up one of the books he had blindly pulled from the shelves downstairs and started reading through it. The reading level was a grade or two below what he'd been practicing at school, which made it a surprisingly easy, stress-free activity. Edison couldn't remember the last time he'd actually enjoyed reading a book, or, for that matter, done it voluntarily in the first place. Reading proved to be a good distraction, and so Edison spent the rest of the morning and afternoon lost in various stories. Grandma Bird came up at noon with his lunch and some new suggestions, then reappeared, seemingly only a few minutes later, to announce that it was almost time for dinner. As she had the day before, she offered to make Edison anything he could think of to eat. Edison knew that, after everything that had happened, the most important thing in the world right now was to be as grown-up as possible. And yet, somehow, he knew that wasn't what he really wanted. What he wanted was the same thing he'd wanted the night before, the same thing he'd always wanted on his first night staying with Grandma Bird. He paused to consider his options. "We're the only ones here," Grandma said. Had he thought it all out loud, or was she just a really good guesser? Edison wasn't sure. He could ask for ham soup. Or meatloaf. Or he could tell her the truth. In that moment, Edison made a decision. A decision to go for it, to say what he really wanted before he lost the nerve. "I want mac and cookies," he said. "Just like we used to." "So do I," Grandma said. "Let's do it." She meant it. Let's as in both of them. For the first time ever, Grandma Bird let Edison help in the kitchen, divulging to him top-secret recipes previously known only to herself and the CIA. Edison learned the trick to making boxed mac and cheese taste like a 4-star restaurant, and practiced all 6 components of the perfect chocolate chip cookie. It was, without a doubt, the best mac and cookies either of them had ever had. "It's getting late," Grandma Bird said some hours later. "I think I'll head to bed. You can stay up as long as you want, just, you know what, I forgot to put new sheets on your bed." "I'll go do that now." "Don't worry about it," Edison said. "I can do it. Or maybe, actually, what if I just slept in the blue room again? Would that be okay?" "Of course," Grandma said. "That's perfectly fine. You can have whichever room you want. Just don't forget to dash." "I won't," Edison said. Thursday. Edison awoke the next morning to a wet pull-up but a dry bed. He was still somewhat embarrassed about the situation, but much less so. Somehow, sleeping in his old race car bed in the bold blue playroom made wearing diapers at night seem a lot less weird. He was in a surprisingly good mood. Edison threw the wet pull-up into the bin and started to head to the shower. On the way out, he decided he might as well unpack. It seemed silly to be living out of a duffel bag when he had a perfectly fine dresser right here. Edison unloaded his socks and underwear into the top drawer, then stacked the remaining pull-ups beside them. His shirts went into the drawer beneath that, and his pants in the very bottom. It felt good to finally be all moved in. After breakfast, Grandma Bird suggested a fishing trip. "Do you like fishing, Edison?" "I don't know," Edison said. "I've never been." "Would you like to find out?" Grandma Bird asked. "Sure," Edison said. "It sounds like it could be fun maybe." "It just maybe could," Grandma Bird said. "Let's do it. I'll get the stuff, you pack us some lunch." Edison made a few sandwiches and put them in Grandma's cooler, along with some of the leftover cookies, a bunch of grapes, and a variety of drinks. Grandma Bird loaded up the truck with various supplies and gear, most of which Edison only vaguely recognized. Fishing, as it turned out, was an extremely boring activity. Mostly you just sat there and waited. And then, after waiting for a while, you'd move the pole around and then wait some more. It wasn't Edison's idea of fun at all. But, while they waited they talked, and Edison enjoyed the talking. Grandma Bird caught 3 fish, which provided a few moments of excitement. "You're really good at this," Edison said. "Thanks," she said. "Your grandpa taught me." "It's a shame you never got to meet him. He was so excited to finally have a grandson. He used to say to me, 'Nora, I love you more than anything, and I'd follow you and the girls to the end of the earth, but we really need another man in this family.'" Edison laughed. "He sounds fun." "He was," Grandma Bird said. "Edison." "Yeah. Thanks for coming up here. Despite all the misanthropy, I still get lonely sometimes. It's been nice having someone to hang out with again." "You're welcome," Edison said. It was evening once again. "So," Grandma Bird said, "what, in all the world, would you most like to eat for dinner today?" "I don't know," Edison said, "but I think it's your turn to pick." "What would you most like to eat in all the world?" Grandma Bird thought about it a long while. "Mushroom risotto," she finally said. "Does that sound good to you?" "Not in the slightest," Edison said. "But I guess I'm willing to give it a try." "Good," Grandma Bird said. "I can guarantee you that mine is the best mushroom risotto in the entire world, so if you don't like it today, there will be no reason to ever try it again for the rest of your life." "Sounds like a plan," Edison said. It was okay. Not great, but not nearly as disgusting as he'd expected. "This isn't nearly as disgusting as I'd expected," he said. "Not the highest compliment, but I'll take it," Grandma Bird said. "No reason to eat the rest if you're not a fan. There's still leftover spaghetti in the fridge." Edison took her up on the offer. After dinner they watched a few movies from Grandma Bird's extensive collection of state-of-the-art VHS tapes. It was long past bedtime when they finally called it a night. Friday. It was lighter than usual when Edison finally woke up. He must have slept in, which didn't surprise him considering how tired he was the night before. He was wet again, but not so much that he felt the need to change right away. Edison lay in bed for a long time before deciding to get up. This, he thought, was what summer was meant to be. No deadlines, no schedules, no stress. No need to get up earlier than he wanted to. It was the toy boxes that finally lured him out. In all this time he hadn't opened any of them. Edison couldn't help but wonder what was inside, and whether his grandmother had kept all the fun things he had loved so much before. She had. The first bin he checked was labeled Blocks, and contained what had been Edison's most favorite toy. Without much thinking about it, he took the bin out and dumped its contents on the floor. It was weird, he knew, an almost 12-year-old playing with blocks, but it didn't feel weird. He should be ashamed, embarrassed, of the little kid room, of the toys, of the fact that he couldn't keep his underwear dry at night. But he wasn't. Down here on the floor, his tower going up block by block, Edison felt perfectly wonderful, wet diaper and all. Miner's tirith took longer than Edison had expected, and it must have been almost lunchtime when Grandma Bird came up to check on him. "Sorry, Grandma," he said. "I sort of got carried away. I know it's late." "Never apologize for a masterpiece," Grandma said. "That's amazing." "Thanks," Edison said. "It's from Lord of the Rings." "Well, Lord of the Rings and my imagination. The parking garage wasn't in the original." "Well, I think it's wonderful," Grandma said. "You have the soul of an architect." "I picked yesterday's activity," Grandma Bird said, "so I guess it's your turn. What should we do today?" "I've always wanted to see the middle of nowhere," Edison said. "Can you take me up there?" "It's a pretty long hike," Grandma Bird said. "You think you're up for it?" "I don't know," Edison said. "How about if I don't make it, we try again next week?" "Deal," Grandma Bird said. "I'll grab some lunch, you go get the truck ready." I was a long, somewhat difficult hike, but Edison made it. All the way there and back. Saturday morning Edison woke up dry, which at this point seemed like the unusual state. He had to go somewhat badly, but first he wanted to look for more blocks. He only needed a few more spires to be finished. The first toy bin, the one labeled blocks, was empty. Moving to down the line, he was surprised to find the next one said bears. Somehow he hadn't noticed it until now. True to its name, the box was full of stuffed animals, most of which Edison recognized. At the bottom sat a large brown teddy bear with a fuzzy nose and inquisitive smile. "Mr. Rufus!" Edison exclaimed. "I haven't seen you in forever. How have you been? Do you want to see my castle?" Edison showed the bear his creation, starting with the bottom and working his way up. He had just about finished the tour when Grandma Bird came in. "Sorry," she said. "I forgot to knock." "That's okay," Edison said. "What's up?" "Today's the day," Grandma Bird said. "We're going into town. Time to get supplies for another week." "Already?" Edison said. "I can't believe it." "I know," Grandma Bird said. "Time flies. But I double-checked, and it's definitely Saturday, so we'd better get going." "Can Mr. Rufus come?" Edison said. "Of course he can," Grandma Bird said. "The more the merrier. We'll leave as soon as you're ready." "I'm ready now," Edison said. Grandma laughed. "You might want to put some pants on first." Edison looked down at himself, teddy bear in hand, standing in front of a block tower wearing nothing but a wet pull-up. He remembered now. He had been in the process of getting undressed when he had gotten distracted by the toys. That explained the lack of clothes. But he specifically remembered waking up dry. How had he wet while awake, and without even realizing it? Grandma saw Edison's surprised look and started laughing again. Edison, not quite sure what to think, decided he might as well laugh too. "Pants," Edison said. "Good idea. I'll meet you downstairs." Edison spent most of the 45-minute drive working on the next week's supply list. He and Grandma talked over food they wanted to eat, home repairs they needed to do, and possible activities. "Can I get a few more clothes?" Edison said. "I don't think I packed enough." "Of course," Grandma Bird said. "Not sure I know what's in style for 6th graders these days." "Me neither," Edison said. "But I'm sure I can find some stuff I like." "Then add it to the list," Grandma said. "Edison shirts, pants, underwear. And speaking of, don't forget to pick up another bag or two of, diapers," Edison said. "Pull-ups. You can say it." "I'm not embarrassed." "Not anymore." At breakfast, Edison had a Mickey Mouse pancake and, at his grandmother's encouragement, his first ever cup of coffee. "My mom doesn't let me have coffee," Edison said. "She says it's just for adults." "Then it's a good thing your mom isn't here," Grandma Bird said. After a long and thorough shopping trip, there was only one task left before heading back to the homestead. Edison was a bit nervous talking to his mom. It had only been 5 days, but it seemed like forever. He talked for 15 solid minutes before she managed to get a word in. "Can I assume from all that you're staying the whole month? You don't want me drive up there tomorrow, right?" Mom said. "Actually," Edison said, "I was going to ask about that. Do I really have to come home at the end of the month? Couldn't I stay here all summer? Please, please. Grandma Bird is old and frail and needs someone to look after her." Mom laughed. "That could be arranged. Put your grandmother on the phone." Edison jumped to dodge the bag of broccoli Grandma Bird had thrown at his head, then handed her the phone. "That was fun," Edison said on the drive back, "but I'm excited to get home." "Same here," Grandma Bird said. "We still have some afternoon left. What do you think we should do today?" "I was wondering," Edison said, "if maybe we could try the driving lesson again." "I thought you said you weren't old enough." Grandma said. "I wasn't," Edison said. "But I think, perhaps, maybe I am now. Plus I've got Mr. Rufus here to help me be brave." "Indeed," Grandma Bird said. "Let's do it."
It was one of these days. Nathan, who was visiting the mall with his mother, was bored to death and Mom seemed to go on forever, leading us from store to store. Suddenly my mother took us into the clothing department because she had just seen a nice dress for me. Once inside the store, I suddenly felt that I couldn't take this torture anymore. It was time to protest. I told Mum that I wanted to go home and that I refused to try any clothes today. Although this was quite some years ago. I lived in a middle-class white family where raising kids was done in a liberal fashion. Protesting wildly was normally free from risk, especially for us older ones. Mum and Dad seemed to be more strict with the younger ones who from time to time got their bottoms smacked when crossing the line. But today was the day when such matters would be way different. "Well," Mummy said, "I'd guess we'll buy you new clothes another day." Mum then continued to the next store, but I decided to end this shopping tour by continuing my protests. "I want to go home now," I screamed, and I was putting on my brattiest behavior possible. Everybody around looked at us and it must have been a great shame for Mum, who remained silent, continued to the next store, and the next, with me continuing complaining and screaming at her for the whole mall to hear. When inside the tea shop, suddenly my senses burst, and from my lips came words that I immediately regretted saying, "I will never follow you out shopping again, you old bitch." I don't know why I said it, but I did, didn't I? Furthermore, for the entire store full of say 14 to 15 customers, to hear. Mom stopped what she was doing and nailed her eyes into me. "What did you say?" Nothing," I whispered, my face turning beet red. Several customers in the shop came to my mother's support and most of them looked very angry. One lady in the 50s also nailed me with her eyes and said, "You are the worst kid I ever saw. If you were my boy I would have made completely sure you'd never say anything like that again." Another very angry-looking black lady, accompanied by her smirky-faced daughter 1 or 2 years younger than me, said something that made butterflies fly around my stomach. "If you were my kid, I would have spanked your bare bottom right here and now." A man in the same age said to my mother, "You shouldn't accept such words from your kid. I think he should be given a lesson right away." My mother just stood there with her head down looking sad, and for one moment I forgot about my own predicament and felt sorry for her. My thoughts, however, were rapidly going back to my own situation, since I heard humming voices around me saying words like punished, astonishing, outrageous, his bottom smacked. I knew something was going to happen and I feared the worst. Suddenly I was ripped from my thoughts when I felt my ear getting twisted and I was being dragged a few meters away. It was my mother dragging me. It seemed she had suddenly got new powers from somewhere. Ow, Mom, it hurts, I whined, and then Mom reached for a chair and sat down on it with me in front of her. Then she started to give me the lecture of my young life, containing sentences like "How dare you call me something like that? Don't you have the least shame?" finishing off with "I will make sure you'll never insult me in public again, young man. Because you are going to get the spanking of your life right here and now." My heart dropped. I stammered something like "I'm too old, it was actually 2 years since my last spanking, please don't do it, I'm sorry." In the meantime, more people had gathered and I guess 20 to 25 people were standing watching my predicament. Making my worst fears come true, 1 boy and 2 girls from my class were there too. Mom bent me down over her knee and continued lecturing me for a minute. Then she started to lay down hand spanks on my jeans-clad bottom. Smark, 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 smark. I was lying there silently crying, mostly from the shame. Mom was spanking me in front of so many people, and I guess half of them were children. Suddenly Mom raised me and wiped a tear from my face, saying, "Save your tears, my boy, because you'll need them in a minute or two. I'm going to make completely sure you'll never ever defy me in public again, do you understand?" I just fell into tears and louder crying. I was again put over Mommy's knee and the spanks started to rain down. It stung like mad and I started begging her to stop. "Smark, smark, please Mom. Smark, 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 stop it, I promise to be good. Smark, smark." After 1 or 2 minutes of spanking, I was risen up again and I felt Mother's eyes right through me. "Never ever will you call me things like that again. Do you hear me?" Still 20 to 25 people were gathered, at least half of them were there from the start, knowing the reason for my punishment, adults still looking angry but also satisfied to seeing me get what I deserved, kids having that special satisfied smirk upon their faces, but also 2 girls actually looking sorry for me. It was then. Being spanked bottom in public is probably every kid's worst nightmare, but for me it was even worse. I felt Mom's hand resting on my bare bottom for a second, followed by a rapid rain of hard and imprinting hand spanks on my cheeks. "Smark, quit it you, smark, smark, you have no right, smark, smark, arga, smark, smark." If I'd screamed and kicked like crazy before, I for sure didn't do it with less enthusiasm now. My screams turned from mad and angry into more and more getting the character of begging and apologizing again. "Smark, smark, I promise to be good. Smark, smark, please Mom, it stings so bad. Smark, smark, I'll never do it again, smark, wah, smark." My bottom stung like crazy and Mom kept on for several minutes, meanwhile giving me short lectures about how to behave in public. Suddenly a short pause and then I felt the smacks continuing, but now with a hairbrush. It stung so much and I was doing a crazy dance on my mommy's knee, trying to make my buttocks smaller and getting away from the spanks, but of course to no avail. The hairbrush found its twin little round targets again and again and again. Finally the spanking was over. I think it lasted for 10 minutes and I was lying helplessly over my mother's knee, with my well-whipped bottom on full display. I didn't even protest, but just sobbed uncontrollably when Mom stood me up naked from waist down, made me step out of my trousers and underpants and made me go around and apologize for everyone in the crowd who witnessed my behavior and its consequences. Coming home, I was sent to bed without supper, and I was almost immediately falling into a sleep in the early evening hour. But before sleeping, I watched my bottom in the mirror. It was a sorry sight. Red and sore all over and even a few places where the skin was almost broken. My birthmark was also in a different color now. The previously dark brown area had got a vivid and angry red-brownish tone. I fell asleep on my tummy that night. The first day at school was a nightmare. My predicament in the mall was on everyone's tongues and I was tortured that day with questions and talk about what had happened. Also the following weeks, the other kids' attitudes towards me was very bad, and I cried myself to sleep during the evenings. I lost my friends, except my best friend Stephen. I realized that I was marked forever. After 2 months came news that were very welcome. Daddy had got a new job in another town far away from this town, where we had lived just 1.5 years. So within 2 weeks from that, we moved and I changed school. I got new friends immediately, and do I have to say, had no one ever got to know about what had happened that day in the mall in my previous hometown. Another thing that I shouldn't have to say is that my attitude towards my parents dramatically improved after that incident.
For the archive. In a small dorm at a state college we find 2 young ladies. One is busy throwing objects in an overnight bag, the other is sitting across from her, a look of worry on her face. The young woman packing the bag looks up at her friend and shakes her head. It's just a little payback, Trish, try not to take everything so seriously. I don't care, Sal. Do you really want to do this? I mean, it's kind of weird, and we are in college now, isn't this whole thing just silly? Silly? The brown-haired girl asked. Silly was her saying she could hypnotize us. We're just getting our payback is all. She lost the bet and now tonight we get to make her do whatever we want. I just think we should let it go, Sal, it's not like she really made us do anything. Sally had finished stuffing the large bag and zipped it closed. She picked it up and turned to her roommate. Am I the only one that thought what she tried to make us do was wrong and disgusting? If she had got her way, we'd have been laughingstocks. But, well, why make her do the same tonight? Isn't it just as bad? No. Just as bad would be to make her not even realize what she was doing wrong and then have her suddenly remember it all later. No, we're just giving her payback. But Sal dash. No buts. Look at yourself. What do you think you have looked like? A 6-foot-tall 19-year-old barking and acting like a dog. Do you think SHE would have kept you in the house? You know what she wanted. We're lucky that hypnotism is BS. Maybe you think me walking around in Pampers would have been funny, I don't. An image of them doing just that flashed through her mind. She didn't like what could have happened, she just didn't feel as angry as Sally. I know, I just don't want to get in trouble. Why make things worse? Grab your purse, Trish. We won't get in trouble, she said she'd do anything we want. It's not like we'll force her if she refuses. Now come on. Trish grabbed her purse and walked out the door. Sally followed her out and smiled. The night air was fresh and cool. A good night for a short walk, she thought. Then she said aloud, the quad's so quiet. I bet you could hear a pin drop. Trish looked up to the sky, the stars were splashed across it in dazzling blues and whites. Yeah, it's never like this at home. I can barely see the moon through the haze there. Both girls walked quietly, lost in their own thoughts and ideas on what the night would bring. The stars stayed bright, but the street slowly grew darker as the street lights became more widely spaced. It was Trish that broke the silence. How does she afford to live off campus? And in such a nice house? Probably a trust fund baby. I know what you mean though, she doesn't seem so highbrow. She seems almost out of place in that house. Yeah, I guess. That's her house there, right? Trish said, pointing ahead. Yep, I told you it was easy to find. Sally hoisted the bag higher on her shoulder and smiled at Trish. I can't wait to see her in this. And remember, don't trip on the broken step. Both girls hopped over it and onto the covered porch. The door was imposing, a solid piece of oak. It opened before either one of them could knock. The smiling face of an older girl looked out at them. Somehow I knew you two would be back. Are you sure you can't forgive me? Trish looked down at her own feet and was about to say something, but Sally was faster. Nope, you know what the deal was. Time for my end of the deal, Liz. Sure thing, come on in. Make yourselves at home. She swept her arm aside and pointed towards the living room. Sally walked towards a large coffee table and dropped her bag on it. She threw her arms up and stretched, yawning loudly. Are the other girls here yet? I don't want to start without them. Liz had helped Trish to a chair. She sat down next to her and smiled back to Sally. Yep, they've been here a while. We're just waiting for you to really get the party started. What? You guys didn't already begin, did you? I wanted to see everything. Trish stood and grabbed Sally when she looked like she might start yelling even more. Relax, Sal, remember this is not for everyone to know about. With your screaming all the neighbors will be over here. And I don't think our parents want to know what's going on. Sally threw Trish's arm off her. She sat down and grabbed at a remote to turn the TV on. Fine. Why don't you go find those two, Trish, and we can get going here. Trish turned towards Liz. Can you tell me where they are? Sure thing, sweetie. But be quiet, I don't want you to wake them up, okay? As they left the room, Sally began opening her bag and spreading the contents out. She smiled as she took out a few pink shirts and dropped them in a pile. Then with a crinkle the diapers came next. Sally could smell the perfume coming from them. It had taken her all day to find them, but a specialty store in town catered to special needs children. Regular adult diapers just didn't seem right to her, and when she had seen these she had fallen in love. A shade of light pink, and overly perfumed, Liz was going to be one cute baby. Finally she just grabbed the bag and dumped the rest of it on the floor. Deciding she would have Liz pick it all up herself. She grabbed one of the shirts and laid it out on the floor next to the pile, and then she opened one of the diapers and placed it on the shirt. This is going to be good, she thought. She was so into getting everything just right she didn't see Trish walk up behind her. We need to go, Trish murmured. Trish. Damn, you scared me, try not to sneak up on me like that. She looked up at her friend and thought she looked kind of strange. You okay? Trish looked to the floor and then back at Sally. Yes. Then her eyes went back to the floor. We need to go. We just got here. I'm not going to leave. Just sit down and relax. At that Trish dropped to the floor on her haunches and hung her head. A few minutes later Liz came back and stood in front of Sally. The others are still getting ready. Why don't you get started? They should be out soon. Fine, Liz. You remember the dare? You tried to hypnotize us, and since you failed you have to do whatever we say, right? Liz smiled. Exactly. Now what is your first order, Sally? Well, I figured since you tried to make me wear diapers I'd return the favor. Now strip. Liz didn't hesitate. She pulled her shirt over her head and dropped her pants, neatly stepping out of them. Sally took a few seconds to look her over, thinking it interesting that she hadn't been wearing any panties. This was going to easy. Now put your diaper on. Liz grabbed the diaper and pulled it between her legs. But Sally stopped her. No, lie down and do it. Sure thing. She dropped to the floor and pulled the front up over herself, then taped it in place. Then without being told she grabbed the shirt and pulled it over her head. What's next? Want me to wiggle my butt in your face? Maybe piss in your lap? Sally felt her pulse quicken. She looked to Trish and was surprised to see that she hadn't moved. She wasn't even looking up from the floor. Trish? Take a look. Don't you want to see what she looks like? Trish slowly brought her face up and then quickly looked back to the floor. Sally jumped up and pulled her to her feet. Come on, look at her. She's the one in diapers. Don't you think she looks cute? Trish mumbled something. Sally couldn't hear her, she was so quiet. What, Trish? Speak up. Yes, she's very sexy. Let's go. Sexy? Sally laughed. Is that a Freudian slip? You got a thing for pamper girls? No. Trish whimpered. Liz walked over and put her arm over Trish. She slowly rubbed her back. Leave her alone, Sally, she's being such a good girl. Look, Liz, I don't care what her kinks are. Sally smelled something. At first it wasn't too bad, then it grew worse. Geez, did you crap yourself already, Liz? Liz smelled the air herself. Nope, I think Ann and Zoe are ready to come out here. Sally was confused. What? Yeah, I think the girls are ready to come out. She turned towards the hallway and shouted, all right, you two, we're ready. Sally looked from Liz, who now seemed to be petting Trish's head, to the hallway. She thought she could hear something. Then she saw movement close to the floor. Her jaw dropped as Ann and Zoe crawled out of the shadows. She thought they were naked, but then she saw the diapers. As they got closer, the smell grew worse. Liz squatted down and put out her hands. That's it, ladies. Come to mommy. I'm so proud. Sally kept quiet. She watched as Ann crawled to Liz, and Zoe started to crawl towards her. Zoe? What's going on? She was starting to get worried. Zoe finally reached her, dropped down on her, but then with a vacant smile she looked up at Sally and started waving her arms frantically. Sally reached down and looked into her face, looking for any trace of the honor student. Liz, what did you do? I didn't do anything. She then pulled the back of Ann's diaper away and looked inside, and I don't think Ann did either. I guess Zoe wants you to change her. Sally let go of Zoe and stepped back. Change her? Yeah, she's messy and needs a new diaper. Better get to it before she gets a rash. Listen, Sally looked to Liz, then back to Zoe, who had her finger up her nose. She realized something was not right. Trish, let's go. Sally looked towards where she was sitting only to see her smiling. What the hell? Come on. You want to sit around in this stink? You really are into diapers, aren't you? She turned to leave, but as she grabbed the doorknob she heard Liz start to laugh. Sally's anger swiftly returned. What? What's so damn funny? Liz stopped laughing as she walked over to Trish and started scratching her behind her ears. You're what's so funny? You scream at poor Trishy, when this is all about what you want. Me? I don't think so. I wanted to get even, not sit around smelling crap all day. Liz started laughing again. Really? She stood up and walked slowly towards Sally, swinging her hips playfully. Who had me wear this diaper? That was a joke. To get even. Even as Sally said it, she felt her anger ease. Oh, so it was a joke to come here, with a diaper bag, and put me in diapers. Yeah, joke. Sally's anger was almost gone, replaced by something else. Liz stopped just in front of her. She put her hand between her legs and stroked her diaper. Just a joke. To see another girl in a diaper. She gently draped her arms over Sally's shoulders, just a joke to look at a pamper girl. Sally could feel her face blush. Yeah. I've never heard you stutter before, are you sure you want to leave? Sally looked over towards Zoe, who had crawled towards the pile of baby things that she had brought, and was sucking on a small plastic toy. Yes. Then she looked down at the diaper on Liz. Liz placed a finger on Sally's lips. Relax, baby Liz knows what you want. B.A. Baby Liz. No, not baby Liz. Little baby Liz. Your favorite pamper girl. The effect was immediate on Sally. Her body stiffened and her face went blank for a second. Now go change Zoe, then you can change me. Sally turned on her heels and walked towards Zoe. What am I doing? She almost felt like crying. As she got closer, the smell grew worse. Why can't I stop? I don't want to do this. She walked to her supplies and quickly grabbed everything she would need and then headed towards her friend. As she set out a plastic mat behind her, she finally started to sob. Zoe. Wake up, Zoe, please. But she didn't seem to hear her, she just kept sucking on the toy. Okay, now lay back, baby. Be a good girl for mommy. She looked up towards Liz. Why am I saying that? What did you do to me? What's wrong? Not enjoying yourself, mommy? Stop saying that. Mommy's not your mommy. Now what did you do to me? Why do I want to change this stinky diaper? Oh, I think you'll want to do more than that by the end of the night. Still think hypnotism is BS? Sally was openly crying now. Please stop this. I'm sorry. Not sorry enough. Trish said as she walked closer to Sally. She leaned over her shoulder. Don't forget to wipe front to back. There you go. You're good at this, mommy. Stop calling me that. Don't worry, you'll get used to it. Now just a sprinkle of powder and you can close that diaper. As Sally taped the diaper closed, she felt something bubbling up through her fear and humiliation, something she knew was wrong. Liz noticed right away. I bet I know what that blush is for. Is mommy ready to change me? Sally was still looking at Zoe as she crawled away. She turned to stand up and found Liz's diaper right in her face. Why? You're still dry. But as the words left her lips, she saw it start to discolor. She couldn't stop herself from reaching out and touching the growing stain. Nice and warm, huh? I bet mommy would really like to get in there and wipe me down. Let's get a little closer. Liz grabbed Sally's head and pushed her face into the warming plastic. How's that? A low moan was her only answer. Good, now mommy can change me, right? She felt Sally nod her head. Liz stepped back and watched Sally take a deep breath. She could see her face was bright red, spit covered her chin. Drooling now? Maybe mommy should be the baby instead. Sally turned her head in shame and wiped her mouth off. No, I couldn't. I mean. Liz got down and gently turned Sally's face towards hers. I know what you mean, now time for you to get what you came here for. Sally watched as Liz lay down and spread her legs. The soaked diaper sagged with the weight of its contents. She couldn't take her eyes off it. The feeling that had replaced her hate grew stronger. She crawled towards Liz and peeled the left tape off the diaper, then the right. She grabbed the front and pulled it open. The odor of pee enveloped her. She pulled it all the way down and let it hang open, then openly stared at Liz's crotch. It's so cute. She slowly spoke. Yeah, I made sure you wouldn't have any hair to worry about. Sally didn't respond, she just started to lower her head towards it. Liz smiled and pushed her away. Bad mommy. Not now. I'm all stinky. Little baby Liz needs a dry diaper. Sally's body went stiff, then relaxed. A gentle smile came to her lips. Okay, let mommy change you. She quickly finished the job, expertly wiping and then taping a new diaper on. As soon as the last tape was secure, she blinked. What just happened? You just changed me, silly. Sally sat back on her legs. But why don't I remember? 1 second I was about to, and then I was looking at a clean diaper on you. What's going on? Liz smiled and pushed herself onto her, but with her hands. I told you I could hypnotize you. You didn't believe me. Now you will. Now why don't you get rid of that wet diaper before Trish starts to lick it? Sally looked towards the sodden mess to see Trish on all fours with her nose practically in it. Trish! Get away from that. You! She snatched it away and was surprised when Trish let out a yelp, and then started to whimper. Trish! Sally looked closely at her friend. She tried to brush some hair from her mouth and felt Trish give it a lick. Trish! What's wrong? Sally stood over her friend for a few moments as she realized what was going on, then looked over towards Liz. She's a dog, isn't she? Liz started to clap. Bravo! It took you long enough. Just a wee puppy actually. You should probably take her clothes off before she makes a mess. Sally shook her head. Come on. This isn't funny. She didn't even want to come, it was my fault she even came. Don't do this to her, please. Do I have to force you to do it? I can make you see her as a dog if you'd like, though that may lead to some interesting problems later. Fine. Sally carefully removed the clothes, the whole time trying to keep Trish from happily licking her. Happy now, Liz? Another ass for you to look at. Why don't you spread out some newspaper, so she has some place to potty? They're over there, by the TV. And I'd be very careful talking about us tonight. You are seconds away from cleaning MYS with your tongue. Just a few words and you can be doing it for the rest of your life. Sally carefully put out several layers of newspaper. So what's going to happen tonight? When am I going to end up in diapers? Or is it going to be something else? Something worse. Liz smiled and crawled over towards a chair, then sat in it with her knees spread and her feet touching each other. Now relax, mommy, little baby Liz needs her bottle. So does little baby Zoe and Anne. Several minutes later, Sally found herself standing on front of the three diapered girls, hungrily sucking down their bottles' contents. Liz! She yelled, cut that out. I would have gotten your bottle. No need to force me. Liz popped her bottle from her mouth. Yeah, but you wouldn't have fed Trish. Sally turned and started for the kitchen, but Liz stopped her. But mommy, little baby Liz wants you to forget about her for now. Sally turned back to her with a dazed look in her eyes. What? Forget what? It doesn't matter, you better stay in here and keep an eye on your babies. Sally sat down on the couch and started to cry. She didn't even look up as she heard someone crawling towards her, the crinkling becoming louder and louder. She looked up to see Anne vacantly staring at her, with a wet smile on her lips. Again Sally felt her pulse rise. Liz, why did you do it? Do what? She asked with a coy smile. Why did you make me want this? Liz slowly crawled on her hands and knees to Sally. When she reached her, she gently nudged Anne out of her way. You mean why did I make you like? She got up on her knees and grabbed the top elastic of her diaper, then pulled on it enough to wedge it up tightly between her legs. This. Sally was biting her lower lip. Yes. Liz laughed loudly. It surprised Anne and made her start to cry. Oh hush little baby Anne. Go to sleep. As Anne curled up on the floor, Liz turned back to Sally, who looked like she was about to start panting. It would have been funny to turn you into a diaper wearing Rugrat like Anne and Zoe. But then you wouldn't really get to enjoy it, would you? After those two wake up tomorrow, they won't remember any of it except for the few pictures I've taken. Of course, every night they'll get a reminder. Sally was gently rocking forwards and back. She could barely stop herself from reaching out and squeezing Liz's diaper. What do you mean, reminder? Liz pouted, and then looked over at Zoe, who was trying to suck on her toes. I think those two are going to be having nighttime wetness problems for the foreseeable future. Then, with the pout still on her face, she sat on Sally's lap. But enough about them. Put your hand on my diaper. Sally swallowed and placed her trembling hand where Liz had pointed. Okay. Now look at yourself. Quivering over just touching a diaper. Leaving you like this is much better than having you humiliated about a few pictures. Sally was slowly rubbing herself back and forth on the couch. Leave me like this? Of course, Sally. The babies are going to have their little nighttime problem, I can't leave them to just hide it. I was thinking of having you all move in here with me. Of course they won't really remember why. But once you figure out where they keep their diapers, it will be fun to see how you talk them into letting you diaper them every night. There's really only one question. Sally was frantic now. She actually had one of her hands down the front of her pants, openly touching herself in front of Liz. Please no. Just put us back to normal. Please. Sorry, I kind of like you like this. And after you start changing the girls every night you will too. Just think about it. A mind-numbing orgasm just from diddling yourself over a diaper. No drugs, no condoms, no mean men trying to rape you. Just you and your pamper girls. Whoops, I guess I need a change again, Mommy. Sally was about to ask what she meant when she felt Liz's diaper start to grow warm. As soon as she realized what had happened, her body slipped over the edge and her mind was flooded with pleasure. She threw her head back and panted with lust as the wave of feeling subsided, leaving her with pulsing aftershocks. Liz got up and stretched. Not bad, huh? That will be yours every night. Now what do you think? I get to humiliate you, and you get to come over wet diapers. Sally had gotten her breath back. She stood up off the couch. You bitch. You've turned me into a pervert. Liz had a look of fake concern on her face. Maybe little baby Liz still has a few lessons to teach Mommy. Then she leaned over the couch and stretched. Sally cracked her knuckles. Maybe Mommy should teach little baby Liz a lesson. Liz stopped her stretching and stared blankly at Sally. Sally walked up to her. I said maybe Mommy should teach little baby Liz a lesson, did you hear me? Liz looked at her, the blank look replaced by a silly grin. She answered in a totally different voice, yes Mommy, baby ready. Oh my. Sally stopped and thought for a moment. She didn't. Then a slight smile spread over her face. Mommy wants little baby Liz to need her diapers as much as she made Mommy need to change them. As soon as she finished talking, Liz dropped to her butt and started rubbing the front of her diaper with her hands. Liz looked confused as she started to lightly moan, oh. What the? Mommy. Little, oh. What's the matter, little baby Liz? Too distracted to talk. Sally sat back down and watched as Liz squirmed and groped herself on the floor. Mommy says little baby Liz can't come till she's told to. No. Sally grabbed the remote for the TV and turned it on. A quick glimpse to make sure Zoe was still interested in her toes and she started to relax. She still felt turned on by girls in diapers, but now it was only a pleasant buzz between her legs. So, Liz. Anything you want to tell Mommy? Oh. No. Are you sure? Did you accidentally hypnotize yourself? Maybe while you practiced or something. I wanted, fun. Liz could barely concentrate, the feeling was growing more intense. She had rubbed the padding in the diaper to bits, and was now wearing a hole through the plastic. Really? Sally couldn't believe what she was hearing. Liz had set a trap, and found herself caught up in it. Little baby Liz, Mommy wants you to forget how to hypnotize people, and how to control those you've already done it to. Liz looked like she wanted to say something, but she couldn't get it out. She could barely keep her breath. Her face was almost purple, and her hands were covered in urine-soaked cotton and globs of gel. Her body was covered in sweat, matting her hair to her head. Sally just laughed. Little baby Liz, Mommy says you can come now. Sally watched as she opened her mouth in a silent scream. Her whole body locked up, fingers and toes turned to fleshy claws. Then her eyes rolled into the back of her head and she dropped unconscious to the floor. Sally checked her to make sure she was still breathing. That done, she decided to leave Liz where she dropped. She hoped she would be able to fix the whole mess on her own. She walked over to Zoe and sat down next to her. The teen baby smiled and slapped at her with spit-covered hands. Oh, you are cute, Zoe. How's your dear pee? With a gentle squeeze, Sally found it to be soaked. I guess I better get that changed, huh? A silly giggle was all she got in return. As Sally changed her, she wondered if she was doing it because she wanted to help, or because of what Liz had done. A warming twinge between her own legs answered her question. She taped a new diaper on, then hurried to roll the old one up and get rid of it before anything gross could happen. As she stepped away from Zoe, she felt something wet grab her leg. Before she could adjust, she fell on the floor. The used diaper ended up under her face. Ow, Zoe. Bad baby, but her attention on Zoe faded as the twinge grew into intense waves. Sally didn't remember picking up the diaper. But she didn't care. Once she had her pants off, she couldn't stop if she wanted to. Several minutes later, Sally's body shuddered and the diaper dropped to the floor. As her breathing returned to normal, Sally sat up and wiped some sweat off her forehead. So disgusting, she said to herself. But the slight buzz was still between her legs. She didn't know it, but she was rapidly becoming addicted to the intense pleasure of being a pervert. Again she grabbed the diaper and rolled it up. This time she made it to the kitchen and tossed it in the garbage. She went back to Zoe, and careful not to hurt her, she set her on the couch. All right, let's try this, little baby Zoe. Mommy says you're a woman again. Sally expected Zoe to come back, but she did nothing but blow a spit bubble. Oh crap, Mommy says little baby Zoe is a big girl. Nothing happened. Damn. Okay, little baby Zoe, Mommy says go to sleep. Instantly Zoe's eyes closed and she fell forward into Sally's hands. She gently set her on the floor and tried to think about her options. Only one kept coming back. She needed to talk to Liz. She tried to wake her up, but she wouldn't stir. Sally needed some cold water. She entered the kitchen and saw something move under the table. Hello? Who's there? A slight whimper answered. When did Liz get a dog? Come on out, doggy. I won't hurt you. She gasped when Trish came out and licked her palm. Trish. When did you? Then she remembered everything. What did I feed you? Sally saw 2 dog bowls sitting on the floor, one of them still half full of some kind of dry dog food. I'm so sorry, Trish. I'd help you, but I think only Liz can. Come on, let's get this over with. Sally poured the cold water on Liz's face and with a sputter and a cough she awoke. Whoa. Cold. Stop that. Come on. Sorry, Liz, you passed out and I needed you awake. Now let's get this done with. What exactly have you done here? And why can't I use the commands to stop this? Whatever, Sally, can I go get a towel at least? But Sally had already grabbed one and threw it at her. Fine, Liz said, wiping off her face. There's only so much simple commands can do, the rest I had to program in last night. So while I can make you guys wet and sleep and stuff, I couldn't actually turn them into babies without serious work. Zoe and Ann will be babies till tomorrow, then they'll wet the bed from now on, nothing I can do to stop that except put them back under. Then do it. I'm not changing their diapers all night. Though a pleasant tingle reminded her she'd enjoy it. Screw you. You made me forget your commands. And you turned me into a diaper pissing freak. I'm not doing a damn thing for you. Just feel lucky Trish isn't going to remember any of this tomorrow. I bet she'd be pretty pissed to find out you fed her dog food. Sally looked back to Trish, then tossed Liz's pants back to her. Here, put these on. I don't want to be staring at your pampered ass all night. Yeah, I wouldn't want you humping my chair all night either. She slipped the pants on over her diaper. They were tight, and about an inch of the diaper peeked over the top, but it was better than nothing. Several minutes went by with both girls staring at nothing. Then Sally spoke. Sorry. Liz was surprised. What, Sally? I said I'm sorry. I just went a little overboard, and stuff. I didn't really mean to hurt you, I didn't even bring a camera. Liz walked over to the TV and leaned against it. After a few seconds she turned and looked at Sally with tears in her eyes. I know. It's all my fault. Then she dropped in a heap next to Sally and cried into her hands. Sally took pity on her and hugged her. It's all right, everything's okay. Liz wiped her eyes, but it's not. I never wanted to be in a diaper forever. I was going to fix you eventually. Sally got up and smiled down at Liz. But now you're stuck. And that means I'm stuck as well. Liz felt confused. Why are you smiling? Because I still won the bet. Maybe I'm into diapered girls, but you're stuck wearing them. You're an asshole, Sally. Be careful, Liz, I'd hate for you to be stuck sucking your thumb in public. Fine. Whatever, I'm going to my room. She was halfway there when Sally stopped her. Hold on, young lady, little baby Liz, tell mommy why you want to go to your room. Baby Liz wants to look on her computer to find out how to fix herself. Sally walked to her and grabbed her roughly. So you have everything on your computer? You bitch. Little baby Liz, mommy says don't move from that spot till I leave your room. Liz started to panic. No. Wait. The slamming of her own door was her only answer. Several hours later the morning sun was streaming through the front window, casting its warm touch on the sleeping form of Trish on the floor. She gently moved her head trying to shield her eyes, then yawned. Wake up, sweetie. It's morning. Sally. Trish asked, then yawned again as she sat up. What's going on? Is it all over? I must have slept through it all. She looked and saw that the couch had been turned to face the open window and Sally was sitting on it. Sorry, Sally, I know you really wanted me to watch. Trish expected her to be angry, but her voice sounded sweet and happy. Well, that's okay. It didn't go exactly as planned. But I think you'll agree what happened was just as good. Trish got to her feet and realized her pants were unbuttoned. She quickly turned and buttoned them up, then started to walk towards Sally. Yeah. So. Exactly what did happen? Did Liz end up wearing the diapers? And why was I on the floor? Well, it seems the joke was on us. Liz really did hypnotize us that night. When we came here she said a few words and you collapsed onto the floor and I suddenly wanted to change used diapers. But little Liz made a slight error and we got the better of her. Trish leaned over the couch while looking out the window. What kind of error? As the words left her mouth she looked down and gasped. She saw Sally sitting with Liz's head in her lap, one hand holding a milk-filled bottle that Liz was happily slurping on. Her other hand was resting on Liz's leg, right beneath her well-used diaper. Oh my. Then she looked back up panicked. The window. Everyone will see. Sally just laughed. I don't care about that, and neither will Liz. She's a happy little girl now. And I don't care who knows. Trish thought something seemed wrong with Sally. Well, can I close up the blinds while you tell me what's going on? Sure, Stinky Pants here needs a new diaper anyways. Trish watched as Sally helped Liz to her feet. She couldn't stop herself. Hi Liz. You enjoy that bottle, she teased. The only response she got was a wet giggle and a vacant smile. Trish was impressed. Wow, she's really under her. But Sally didn't answer. She just grabbed Liz by both hands and helped her walk towards a back room. Liz seemed barely able to walk. Twice she tripped on her own feet. They got to a closed door and Sally turned to Trish. Now keep quiet, young lady. I don't want to fuss. Trish nodded her head and walked through the door behind Sally. The darkness was only broken by a simple nightlight. She watched as she gently set Liz on the floor and started to change her diaper. Then Trish heard something off to her right and saw there were lumps on the floor. She carefully walked over and realized she was looking at Zoe and sleeping. Both had pacifiers in their mouths, and each had been covered by blankets, except Anne's had slipped off and Trish could see she was wearing nothing but a diaper. She looked over to Sally, who only put a finger to her mouth to warn her to stay quiet. Trish bit her lip, then decided she could wait for an explanation. She gently covered Anne and walked out of the room to wait for Sally. Sally came out sans Liz. I thought she could use a nap, and with the other two still out I figured it wouldn't hurt. Trish looked at Sally and realized she was being serious. What happened to Zoe and Anne? Why are they in diapers? Sally just smiled at her. It sent shivers down Trish's spine. Well, let's sit down, it's kind of a long story. She walked into Liz's bedroom. Here, come and sit on Liz's bed. Trish did so, and Sally sat at the computer. She turned it on and started to talk while it started up. First off, it seems not only did she make me dash from changing diapers, but dash. Trish cut her off. She made you get off on diapers. That's sick. Oh yes, I know. I tried to fix myself, but she made it so her commands couldn't be stopped. I realized I couldn't stop them, so I had to change them as much as I could. It took a while for me to figure out how to do it. The computer was finally running and Sally started to go through different menus, typing as she did. It seems Liz was really into hypnosis, and she got her hands on some kind of program that really opened up her possibilities. That's what she used on us. Most of the program is basic, you just enter in certain parameters and then it writes a routine. It clarifies exactly what you want to do and goes from there. I found the routine she wrote for me and changed it as much as I could. Trish couldn't believe it, so she used a computer to do all this. She saw a diaper sitting on the bed and absently picked it up. Wow, I wouldn't have thought something like that would work. Sally turned and saw Trish looking at the diaper. Yep, so after I checked on her computer and figured everything out, I made the changes to myself first, then I adjusted Zoe and Anne. After those two, I decided I'd give Liz a taste as well. Sally looked like she was about to go on, but Trish was confused. Wait, you said you were able to fix yourself and that you fixed Zoe and Anne, but they aren't fixed. They're still wearing diapers. And how can you fix any of it if Liz's commands couldn't be stopped? Sally punched a few keys on the computer and answered. I said I adjusted her commands, I couldn't really remove them. Her commands caused me to go crazy over a girl in a wet diaper. The urges I felt were absolutely wonderful. But I couldn't go on like that and I couldn't completely remove them, so I adjusted it to a more maternal feeling and presto. No more all-day horniness. And Zoe and Anne? Oh, they were going to be returned to normal this morning and then be bedwetters for the rest of their lives. Well, I couldn't let those two little girls be forced to change their own wet diapers, so I adjusted them, and now they don't have to worry about it. I'll do it for them. Trish was horrified. You adjusted them to what exactly? Sally was still punching keys, and not looking at Trish. Oh, I figured it would be easier if they could crawl, so I made them into infants. It's the cutest thing really. I was going to make them newborns, but I think it would be too much carrying them around. And I really like seeing their diapered butts crawling around the floor. Trish stood up and looked out the doorway down towards where the girls were sleeping. So you turned them into babies so you could change their diapers for them? I thought you adjusted that. Of course I did. I just adore little baby girls. After all, I'm not doing anything bad. All women want to be babies after all. Not only do I get to have my very own babies to take care of, but they can enjoy being free again. Now Trish was scared. All women want to be babies? Listen to yourself, that's the programming talking. You need to stop this. Why don't you let me take a look at that computer? Sally stopped typing and looked up at Trish. You're so full of questions. I think it's time for your adjustment. Just think how nice it will be. I'll even make it so you can still talk. Trish stopped and stared, then started to back out the door. No. I don't want to be an infant. I think you need to take a break, let's go get some air. Then we can come back and help the others. Sally frowned. Oh, you don't want to be an infant. Then the manic smile returned. No problem, sorry about that. I didn't realize, I guess you're right about what Liz did to me, still making me think a certain way. She tapped a few more keys, then stopped. All right, so what do you think of this? Then she motioned Trish towards the computer screen. Trish stepped back into the room. That's not going to turn me into a baby or anything, is it? Sally laughed. Of course not, Trish. I want you to see what you think of the program parameters is all. Trish nervously smiled and looked at the image on the screen. It looked like some kind of graph. What is this supposed to be? Then she heard Sally hit a key and the screen jumped to life. Images blurred past, then it started to get brighter and brighter. Finally it seemed to go blank. Trish felt herself get a slight headache, but it quickly faded. Sally, what was that? Sally went back to typing. I don't know exactly, it's something called a reinforcer. I think it's supposed to make it easier for me to control you later. What? Control me? I told you I didn't want to be a baby. Then Trish turned and ran for the door. She was almost there when she heard the sickly sweet voice of Sally, barely more than whisper, Trishy, Mommy wants you to stop. At once Trish stopped and stood still. Only 2 feet from the door. No, no, no. She muttered as she tried to move her feet. Sally. I don't want this. Please. Let me go. Trishy, Mommy thinks you should stop yelling and get back in here. Trish turned on her heels and walked slowly back to Sally and her horrible computer. She tried to grab the door frame, but her feet just pulled her right inside and stood her next to Sally. Sally, Trish was able to whisper, Sally, please don't do this. I just want to go home, you can keep the others. I won't tell anyone. But Sally didn't seem to hear her. She just kept typing on her computer. Then she looked up at Trish and gently patted her butt. I think I got everything ready for you. Why don't you just take a look here and you'll be all set. When Trish didn't move, Sally sighed. Trishy, Mommy says look at the monitor. Trish's face was covered in tears. She tried to fight her body, but only succeeded in wetting her pants slightly. She tried to ignore the warmth running down her leg as she looked at the screen. The graph was there and a small green rectangle was flashing in the center. Sally smiled as she brought her hand up and placed a finger over the enter key, then she stopped. Silly Mommy, I almost forgot. Trish couldn't look away as Sally laughed to herself. I better get baby diapered first. I don't want to pry those pants off you any wetter than they already are. Trishy, Mommy wants you to remove your clothes. Trish was still crying as she started to pull her shirt off. She tried her best to plead with Sally. Please, I said I don't want to be an infant. I don't want this at all. Just let me go. I'm not a baby. Sally laughed again. Not a baby? You don't want this? Look at your pants, adults don't wet themselves. Don't worry, soon you'll be safe. Soon you'll be free. Then you'll see how sad your life is right now. You'll love your thick pampers. Trish got down to nothing but her wet panties quickly. As she pulled them off, she held them in her hand, refusing to drop them. No. I won't let you do this. Sure, Trishy, whatever you say. Sally mocked. Time to clean you up, let's go get a fresh DP on you. Sally stood and took Trish towards the dark back room. The room Trish knew contained examples of her own future. As she entered, she tried to pull away from Sally but found herself pushed down and onto her back instead. She went to get back up. Unfortunately, Sally quickly placed a hand on her chest. Does Mommy have to force Trishy to comply? I can do that if I have to. Trish felt her fear multiply, but the tears would not come back. She knew she had to escape. Maybe, she thought, maybe I can act like I'm happy about this, then when her guard is down, make a run for it. She smiled weakly. No, Mommy, Trishy will be good. Sally looked her right in the eyes. See, I told you everything would be okay. You'll be so happy. Then she started to wipe Trish off. The cool wipe slowly warmed and its scent filled the room. Trish followed all Sally's commands quickly. When told to lift her bum, she did, even laughing a bit when she felt the diaper slide under her. Inside, she was screaming. She knew she only had one chance. Trish stole a quick glace towards the sleeping girls, and had kicked her covers off again, and Liz seemed to be tossing and turning a lot. Then she saw a fourth mat, empty and ready for Sally's newest charge. Trish swallowed when she saw that. She turned back to Sally and saw she was done. Her diaper was taped on and Sally was motioning her to stand up. The thick diaper made it hard to get up quickly, so Sally gently pulled Trish to her feet. Good girl, time for your little fix. Just think, soon you'll be a happy little girl again. Then she did something Trish didn't expect. Okay Trishy, Mommy says hold onto her hand and don't let go. We don't want baby to get hurt falling. Damn, Trish thought. Then a slight cramp in her stomach made her almost lose her balance. What's the matter Trishy? Sally, I really have to go. Oh, let's get you adjusted then you'll feel better. She pushed her into the computer room again, but Trish turned to face her. No, I mean I have to poop. Suddenly another idea popped into her head. Sally, can I ask you a favor? Sure sweetie. Well, can I, Trish felt her face blush, can I poop my diaper as a big girl and have you change me one last time? Sally's smile faded. I don't know, why not just wait and see how much baby Trishy likes it? Trish wrapped her free arm around Sally. Well, after you do that I'll feel different about you. I want to have this feeling one last time. Sally was puzzled. What feeling? Trish leaned in and kissed her on the lips, hoping that the programming Liz had done would help her out. Sally broke the kiss and blinked. A slight blush on her face told Trish she was in luck. Yeah, I guess that's okay. Trish smiled and wiped some hair away from Sally's face. Then let's take this out to the living room. I want to be comfortable. Sally didn't question why. She just nodded and walked Trish out towards the front room. When they reached the center, Trish tried to squat down, but Sally still had her hand tightly held. Sally, can I have my hand back please? Now it was Sally's turn to blush as she let go. Sure Trishy, Mommy says you can let go of her hand and go poopis in your diaper. Then as an afterthought she added, and Mommy wants Trishy to really enjoy it. Trish had hoped Sally would let go, but didn't count on the last part. She felt her own body betray her as a solid mass started to be pushed into the back of her diaper. The feeling was compounded as she felt herself pee as well, then she felt lightheaded as another feeling crept up on her. Trish looked up towards Sally to see her standing with a coy smile on her face and a hand gently rubbing a breast. Trish grunted a few times as she pushed harder, and was rewarded with a gentle wave of pleasure. Then Trish closed her eyes and pushed as hard as she could to get done as fast as possible. The effect was one last lump in her diaper, and a massive orgasm. Trish lost her balance and dropped onto her butt, causing the mess to spread out over her bum, but she didn't notice. After several seconds she looked up at Sally and smiled for effect, then slowly stood up. The diaper was now so thick she couldn't get her knees together. The large mess now felt disgusting against her fanny. Sally and wrapped her arms around her back and kissed her again. Thank you Mommy, can you change me out here, please? Sally looked flustered for the first time. But everything is in the back. Trish grabbed Sally's hand and placed it on her diaper. Then go get it, I'll wait. Sally blushed and turned to leave. She was several steps away when Trish started to move for the door. She had just taken her first step when she heard Sally call to her over her shoulder. Trishy, Mommy wants you to lay down on the carpet and wait for your new dear pee. Trish grumbled as she slowly lowered herself onto her butt. She felt the mess spread out more as she lay down on her back. Hurry up Sally, this thing is icky. Trish closed her eyes and tried not to think of what she had done. Sally returned quickly, diaper and wipes in hand. She knelt down in front of Trish and started to remove the diaper. As she peeled the first tape off though there was a knock at the door. Trish's head snapped towards it, then back to Sally. She opened her mouth to speak, but Sally slipped a pacifier in before she got a chance. Trishy, Mommy wants you to keep this binky in your mouth. Now, let me see who's at the door. Trish couldn't believe Sally said that. She shook her head violently. She tried to tell her no, but it was just muffled by the pacifier. She wanted to escape, but she wanted to do it without a poopy diaper on. She couldn't see the door from her position, but she heard Sally crack it open. Yes? Can I help you? Oh, I didn't know Liz had anyone over. We've got tennis practice together and we need to get a move on. Really? So Liz had a play date, huh? Well, come on in, sweetie. What's your name? The voice sounded angry now. My name is Susie. And I don't know how you talk to other women where you are from, but this is not a play date. I'm here to get her for team practice. Maybe the tennis skirt I'm wearing isn't obvious enough. I see, Susie. Well, come on in. Where are you from exactly? Ohio. Why? Well, you look Japanese. Whatever. Where's Liz? Just back here. Mind the baby, she needs a clean diaper. Trish could hear the voices getting closer. She closed her eyes again when she saw something move out of the corner of her eye. Yeah, it smells like shit in here. I don't think I'll be able to study. Then she saw Trish. Huh. That's the baby? Geez. Shouldn't she be in a home or something? And why are her tits hanging out like that? I didn't think we had retards on the campus. Sally got defensive. She's not a retard, she wanted this. She just pooped her diaper and asked me to change her. Trishy, nod your head for Mommy if that's true. Trish tried hard not to do it, but she happily nodded her head, opening her eyes a bit to see exactly whom was looking at her. She saw a petite Asian girl. She locked her eyes on her and tried not to cry. Susie doubled over in laughter. She wanted this? She actually wanted to poop herself? Ha ha ha, that's crazy. Did she want you to get her naked as well? Ha ha ha. Sally looked down at Trish and smiled. Yes, and now I'll change her and she'll be a happy baby forever. Just like she always wanted. Susie just kept laughing. Sally sighed and pointed towards the back rooms. She's in there, but I think she had something in her room for you. Fine, whatever. Let's go. Sally looked back to Trish. Hold on, Trishy, Mommy wants you to relax while I go take care of Susu.